Hi, this is Jamie Benning. This is the Filmumentaries podcast. Thank you for joining me again. This is episode 14, and this time I speak to stunt performer Ben Dimmock. Ben and I have been hoping to catch up for a few weeks now, and we were able to do it in the week leading up to Christmas. It's actually Christmas Eve today. We've watched The Muppet Christmas Carol 5 days in a row with my daughter, and the Christmas spirit is flowing. The vegetables have been chopped. The bird is in the oven already. We're cooking it all today, so tomorrow we can just have a nice chill and enjoy some family time, albeit over our webcam software of choice. So let's get into the interview here. This is Ben and I chatting just a couple of days ago about his career in the film and TV industry. He's worked on some quite big films, including Mission Impossible, Captain America, and on some of the Bourne stuff with Matt Damon. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll be back at the end for a bit more jabbering on. The question that I always ask people, of course, is that typical one. What initially attracted you to doing stunt work? Was because obviously I think we're of a similar-ish age. I think you're probably a bit younger, but
that's very kind.
We probably grew up watching the same television and films as kids. Was that a big influence on you?
For me, it was. I always had an interest in bikes when I was a kid, and my earliest memory is at nursery school. Fighting over a little tricycle, and I just anything with wheels, I absolutely love it. I started saving from a very young age to get my first motocross bike, and I got that when I was about 11 or 12 years old. But going down the stunt route, it was watching programs in the 70s and 80s, like you say. It's mm-hmm. all that cheesy American stuff, the Fall Guy and Dukes of Hazzard and the A-Team and all that kind of film. Street Hawk was another one, and I just thought, that looks like fun, particularly the Fall Guy. And I thought, I think that's what I want to do. And so that was sort of like, I was about 6 or 7 when that was on, and that was it. I thought, that's it. I want to be a stuntman. So that's where it all started from.
Yeah, because back in those days, in the 70s and 80s, like you say, the Fall Guy, there was also the Burt Reynolds. What was that film called about the stuntman?
Well, there was the Hooper.
Hooper, yeah. I mean, we knew what a stuntman was. It was probably one of the few jobs that people knew about filmmaking, TV making, other than camera operator and actor, that you could go and do. So, because I think of some of those like old documentaries of you'd see on a Saturday afternoon on the TV about the latest stunt in a James Bond film or an Indiana Jones film, and some of those names I can think, Glenn Randall and Vic Armstrong and Martin Grace and all those guys. Yeah, I mean they were sort of people. They're legends. That, you looked up to. They were legends of their industry.
That's it. And they were kind of famous in their own right, really. But I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted to crash cars and drive things fast and jump over stuff, and that was the interest for me. I knew nothing about the money. I didn't have any idea of how much stunt people, and I wasn't drawn for the money. I was drawn because I wanted to do cool stuff on my bike. Really, that was the draw for me.
Yeah, I think as a kid, I had a BMX. All my mates had BMXs. We'd make ramps, and a couple of them went on to motocross and competed in motocross. I sort of never went down the route. I think I just sort of lost my bottle too early on. That's the thing that amazes me about stunt performers is I know as a kid and as a teenager and maybe as a young adult, you've still got that bit of bravado and you think you can kind of do anything and you're invincible. But when you get to a certain age, those things kind of start creeping in. Those doubts start creeping. How do you sort of keep on top of those? Well, I mean, those thoughts.
The process to becoming a stunt performer in the UK, we have the British Stunt Register, which I'm actually on the committee for, but we set out guidelines basically telling people to get qualified in 6 different sports, and that's all to a very high level. It's kind of almost to instructor level in a lot of them, and having that background gives you the skills, if you like, which mean that you can then take that to stunt work. Having those skills doesn't mean you can do stunt work. What it means is you've got a good grounding and you can pull on those skills when you're put in an awkward situation, or a situation where you think this is a bit tricky, how might I get around this? And that's when you draw on the skills that you learn as when you're training to join the stunt register. So and then when you, obviously there's a process then when we do a stunt. It's not just right, let's go and chuck yourself off a building on fire. It's not quite that simple. You'll build up to it and you'll rehearse it, and we'll rehearse it in a really safe manner, and everything we do is very safe, and people quite often think that stunt people are all brain dead Neanderthals, and it's really not the case at all. There's a lot of health and safety in what we do, but basically, so to, in answer to your question, it's the 6 skills that you learn before you join the stunt register, which give you your basis for doing the stunt.
Mm. And so do you therefore end up with almost like a CV or a resume of all the sort of key skills that you have as a stunt performer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you join the stunt register, you'll find a lot of people have got a background in something, and gymnastics, free running, martial arts are the 3 popular ones that everyone seems to, or a lot of people come from. But my background obviously was motocross. But then the 6 skills I actually did to join the stunt register were gymnastics, fencing, trampolining, jiu-jitsu, scuba diving and swimming. And then motocross was my kind of background that I had, but it was such a grey area as to what the qualification was. I thought, I'm just going to do what's written down in black and white and have motocross as my thing. And then when I joined the register, I got known for riding bikes. I used to go out riding with other stunt people, and and you get known for riding a bike, and then you start getting work in that sort of field. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all progresses, really.
And what was your first gig then as a paid stunt performer, and what was that like? Was it a pretty nerve-wracking experience?
It was. I'd done probably about 5 or 6 years as an extra, which gave me a good idea of what happens on set. So I was kind of comfortable with that. But then when you're suddenly put in the hot seat and you realise the camera is absolutely 100% focused on you and your performance, and it's not just a case of throwing yourself downstairs, you've got to do it in a way that looks like the actor you're doubling. So I don't remember being particularly nervous about my first job. It was quite simple. It was a Sky TV show called The Sight, and I was doubling Andrew McCarthy, who was one of the Brat Pack back in the 80s. Yeah, so I was doubling him, and I literally just had to jump down a manhole onto a platform about 8 feet below, and then jump off of that onto a crash mat. It was a very straightforward thing, and I don't remember particularly being nervous about it, but it was quite exciting just doing. It's not the sort of thing you do, and it's great to sort of see that you get to see some fantastic places when you're working. As much as you probably know the same. It's
it's a big part of the job, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but no, I wasn't particularly nervous, but I certainly have been apprehensive, should we say? Not nervous, but apprehensive about doing stuff, and that's again when you fall back onto the skills you learnt when you were training, and you draw on that, and that's what gets you through things.
Yeah, it's about channeling that adrenaline, I guess, isn't it? I mean, my job in live television obviously doesn't compare, but I'm going to compare it in as much as, you're nervous about like the start of a race. It's all happening. There's 20 engines roaring, and you've got to do your bit right.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the shot.
You've just got that moment to do it. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
And you've got the pressure of a whole crew looking at you. Everything's focused on you for that moment. You mentioned there actually about with Andrew McCarthy, you're sort of replacing him and being him in that scene. Do you study the people you are doing stunts for when you're doubling for somebody to try and get their movements and make it more authentic?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. Quite often, if there's a shot leading up to what they're doing, they might have been shot in the leg, or they might have been punched in the ribs, and so you have to match that. So you'll watch whatever they've shot leading up to that, and then you have to match that, as much as you can, which will enable you to do the action safely as well. Because sometimes you might need 2 legs to jump off, but if you've been shot in one and you can't use it, it's right. Okay, how do we do it? Or you just have to kind of do it, and then you change your camera angle slightly to it's the illusion, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Talking of the illusion then, like you've got, I suppose, since you've been in the industry, we've gone through the process of stunt performers being on screen and their faces being on screen and maybe trying to hide their face, or wearing a prosthetic or a makeup. But of course now CGI face replacement is doing a big job, particularly on those big budget movies. How has that changed things? I mean, I know there's a lot of actors out there who say they like to do their own stunts. There are obviously some in particular we can think of, Tom Cruise being one of them. But with the face replacement, why are they still keen to do those stunts? Why don't they let the person who's trained to do it and then have their face put on them? Is it just an ego thing?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's ego sometimes. Yeah, you'll get some actors who are quite happy to say stunt people did it all. Equally, some of them like to do it as well. And as a coordinator, you want to get them to do as much as they can, because they enjoy doing it. But you need to be able to get them to do it safely. Like you say, face replacement is fantastic now, and I mean, I think there's even there's videos on YouTube where amateurs are doing it, and you cannot tell. It's amazing what you can do now with quite basic software, and of course the VFX departments have amazing software. You cannot tell. So face replacement's great, but yeah, some actors are sometimes it is ego that takes over.
Yeah, and I guess it can be born out of wanting it to be entirely authentic, because I guess even though the effects can be fantastic, you do have your doubts. You think that was never so and so. So maybe that's something to do with just having that authenticity. Thinking about like some of the movies I grew up with, like Indiana Jones and the Star Wars movies, I know that Harrison Ford, one of his doubles, Vic Armstrong, had an amazing likeness to him at the time. There are some photos of them side by side on the Temple of Doom and Last Crusade sets, I think, where I think there were stories that, Spielberg went and tapped Vic Armstrong on the shoulder to give him the new script for that morning. And, oh no, it's you, Vic, sorry. Because you've doubled for somebody that you bear a likeness to, haven't you? Matt Damon. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I remember I was working on Bourne Ultimatum, and we were out in Madrid, and I was driving a police car. It wasn't anything to do with doubling Matt. And I remember sitting in a trailer one day. There was a few of us sitting in there, and someone walked in, and they kind of looked at me and did a double take, and I hadn't realised. It never crossed my mind that I ever looked like him. Weirdly, after that, I came home, and my kids were kind of 2-3 years old at the time, and one of them picked up Bourne Supremacy or Bourne Identity DVD, and there was a picture of Matt on the back of it, and he pointed at it and said, "It's Daddy." And I thought, oh, that's weird. And I looked at it and thought, yeah, I can sort of see a likeness there. And it was about 3 or 4 months later, they were doing reshoots on Bourne Ultimatum, and they said, "Oh, we want you to double someone on the film." I said, "Okay, no worries." I went in, and it turned out they wanted me to double Matt, and it was great. So I only did the reshoots on Bourne Ultimatum, but then from that I went on to double him on Green Zone and Jason Bourne, and I'd had calls to double him on The Great Wall. I went out to China for a while, but I had to come back for personal reasons, so I didn't actually carry on with that. But yeah, so that's that. But I had a similar thing to what you were just saying about Vic. I was leaving stage one day at Shepperton on Bourne Ultimatum, dressed as Jason Bourne. A car came racing up behind me, bibbed the horn, and he said, Matt, jump in. And it was actually Matt's driver, who thought I was Matt Damon, and because he was worried that he was walking back to his trailer on his own, but it was actually me. But they when we've done some of the Bourne films, they can shoot on almost like 2/3 of my face from behind, kind of thing, because the likeness was so good.
Yeah, there is definitely an approximation there. Like, I'm looking at you now, and I can see that from certain angles, there could definitely be you could easily be mistaken for him. Going from, like you said, driving a police car like an anonymous character to them being, the stunt double for the main character. That must be a big step up in terms of expectation, as well as your keenness to do a good job.
Yeah, it is. I guess there's always a pressure on performing stunts, but also I'd like to say as well, there were 2 or 3 doubles. I wasn't the only double.
Yeah, that's often the case, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, because there's people who are specialists in different areas. There was one scene on Bourne Ultimatum, where at the end of the film he jumps off the roof of the hospital and falls in the water, and myself and there was another stunt guy, good friend of mine, Aaron Topham. We were both doubling Matt, and we both rehearsed the fall, but Aaron actually ended up doing it. There is an additional pressure because obviously it's number one on the call sheet, and you want to sort of step up and you want to be as as good as you need to be to sell the film, really. Yeah, so there is quite a bit of pressure there.
Do you get to therefore be around on set a bit more when you're, doubling for the main character, or are you just called upon as and when your shots are being set up and things like that?
It's a bit of both, really. If he's just doing a dialogue scene with another actor, then you wouldn't really be around. If he's doing something where maybe he's crawling around on the ground, you might be there. And it shatters the illusion, but you might be there just to hand him a knee pad or something like that. It can actually be quite boring at times, but then the stunts you do get to do are usually a bit more spectacular than taking a bullet hit and falling over in the background. You could be actually falling off of things, crashing cars, and doing all that sort of the more fun stuff. So it's there's swings and roundabouts, really. Yeah,
I guess as well with doing these stunts is you in terms of budget, you're trying to do them on the first take quite often. Particularly if it's involving a vehicle and you've got to ditch a bike or something, or a car is going over. How do you therefore rehearse for something like that?
Well, if you're absolutely right. Yeah, if you're doing something where stuff's going to get wrecked, then unless you've got replacements of it, you've generally got one go at it. So if you're doing, for example, you want to do a T-bone in a car, so you want to drive one car into the side of another, you'll rehearse it right up to the point of impact, and then you'll just stop. And then you go, okay, this is the one, we're going to do the take. Camera positions of all, everyone's got their cameras in the right position. Everyone knows where you're going to be, what the timing is, and then you'll do it. And then to get that impact, you just won't brake, and you'll just plough the car into the side of the other car, and just hope that everyone was rolling, and they got the shot. So it's just all about rehearsal and planning,
yeah.
Really.
Getting that kind of muscle memory and that repetition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you obviously work as a stunt coordinator as well as stunt performer, and does that mean that you have a team there of stunt performers? Does it mean that they try and compete to get the best stunt, or is there is it a team effort and you're sharing things out, or is it decided, or do you decide that as the coordinator?
Yeah, as the coordinator, you pick the best person for the job. And it's very busy in the UK as well at the moment. So of course there's getting the right person. Sometimes, it's not compromised, but of course maybe your first choice isn't available. But
sure.
No, there's not so much competition between guys, because they'll when you've got a big team on something and there's lots to do, you'll kind of try and spread the love a little bit, and so everyone gets a go at something. But it's all about choosing the right person for the job, who's got the right skills, and who's going to be able to give you the best performance, really.
How much of a pressure is there to sort of find something that hasn't been done before? Does that come, like to do a stunt that's going to kind of blow away people? Does that come from the filmmakers, or do you guys and girls kind of say, well, look, actually we could do this would step things up a bit? Is there a challenge to do that for you?
There's a little bit of both there. Obviously the filmmakers will have their vision of what they want to see, and then we can look at it, we can look at previs, we can look at storyboards, and we can go, okay, that's achievable, or how are we going to do that? It might involve some wires, it might involve specialist vehicles, it might involve vehicle prep, and then we can put a creative spin on it as well to see if we can get just something a bit more. Quite often, the director will say, no, this is what I want, and this is how I want to do it. So we just go with that, but we're always there trying to give our input as well, to make things look a bit more spectacular, or we're trying to give the director what he wants, really.
So how early do you get involved in the creative process? Because you talked about storyboards there. So
yeah, so we can. It really, again, this is it depends on whether it's TV, film, big budget film, low budget film. It can be, as a performer, you really don't know much about it until you turn up, and in TV it's like, we're going to do a car turnover, and you don't really know anything about it until you get there and see it. On film, you can get months of rehearsal for for stuff. As far as coordinating goes, you'll tend to there'll already be a script, and you'll get a script, and then you just have to go through that and break it down to see, basically for budget reasons, really, to see how much things are going to cost, and you sort of give it your best guess. You know, where it says, I don't know, guy walks into a restaurant and there's a fight, so you think, okay, so you're going to need 2 people for the fight, but then is there anyone else involved? Is there people getting thrown across the bar? Is there tables getting smashed? Do I need another 6 performers for that? So it's that sort of process you have to go through as a coordinator, but then that can get toned down, or it can be scaled up. You know, it's fairly early on we get involved, really.
Yeah, because my question really was wondering about whether, you know, if you're involved early, the director therefore can sort of change a scene based on what you can offer.
Oh yeah,
in a way.
absolutely, that can happen. The job I'm on at the moment, I'm actually assistant coordinator on this one, but I was in a meeting where the coordinator, there was a previs that was being shown, and the coordinator said, "Oh, but at this point, how about we do this?" And the director said, "Yeah, that's brilliant. We can do that." So they changed the previs to what the coordinator was actually his idea. So yeah, so we're definitely involved in all that, and things can be changed. Yeah, absolutely.
I was laughing at another interview you did on the Stunt Pod when you were talking about a gig you got where you had to go to Jamie Oliver's place and go on a bike, and how quickly that escalated.
Well, that's a prime example of turning up
and
everything just blows out of proportion. I mean, it was literally an advert for his TV show. And the whole sort of premise of it was Jamie Oliver was stripping everything back to basics, just doing good, simple cooking without all the gimmicks. And of course, it starts off with him pulling a leek or carrots out of his vegetable bed, and then he walks through his garden, and in the background there's explosions and chefs running around, and it, you know, it's all about the gimmick. But when I turned up, I thought I was going to be one of the guys running around in the background, falling over or taking a reaction from an explosion. And then a motorbike turned up. And someone said, "Oh, motorbike, Ben, you ride bikes, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I can ride that." And next thing, I'm jumping over a wall, and someone's going to be on the back. Oh, you're going to be on fire. He's going to be carrying a jam tart. There's an explosion going. And I thought, well, this has got a bit bigger than I thought. And but it was absolutely fantastic. I loved that day. It was only one day filming, but it was really good fun. I absolutely loved it.
Can that be quite typical in television then, that suddenly you're just required to do, you know, a dozen more things than it looked like on paper, just because of the sort of immediacy of turnaround, I guess, with TV is what I'm thinking of.
It doesn't happen often. I mean, quite often they'll know, but that's where the coordinator can... The thing is, directors always want to hear yes, but there's always a but. Anything is possible with the right amount of time and money. You know, anything is possible. But if you want something to happen in 2 hours, but we're really going to need 2 weeks prep for it, then the answer is unfortunately going to be no. But you always say yes, and then you try and work out how you can make something happen. But yeah, I mean, that Jamie Oliver, it was fairly straightforward, really, but it just went from sort of falling over in the background. To suddenly, I think I sent you a picture, actually, of that Jamie Oliver.
Yeah. I'll put that on the website as well, because it's a good fun one. You're trying to work out how long a stunt is going to take to achieve. I guess that's part of your job as coordinator. You're saying we need X amount of hours or days to achieve this. But there's so many other factors to consider, aren't there? I mean, you know, you've got the actors might be involved for part of it. There's multiple camera setups. It can get pretty complex, can't it? I mean, some of those stunts that you would have been involved in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, I can look at stunts from like the 80s and go, I can kind of see how they did that. On some of those stunts, you think, how the bloody hell did they pull that off? And there is a sort of secretive nature to your work as well, isn't there? You want to kind of hide. You don't want to explain it all away to people, because you want to keep a bit of that mystique. There is that thing, isn't there? You think that cannot be real. And I think people kind of, maybe part of the audience dismiss it and go, it's just CGI, you know, like we do now with effects. But there's still so much physicality to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Mission Impossible was. I'd have done that job for free. It was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. It was riding motorbikes with my mates. We were crashing stuff, riding fast around streets, and skidding bikes around and doing jumps, riding down steps, crashing into cars. It was just absolutely.
Where was that based?
I did a couple of weeks in Vienna, which was it wasn't actually part of the bike chase itself, but it was it was when they were doing the stuff they were at the Opera House out in Vienna.
Yeah.
But I was riding a police bike, and then a car blows up, and we had to crash the bikes behind. But then the main bike chase itself was actually done in Morocco. We were in Casablanca.
That's right.
We were in Rabat, up in the Atlas Mountains. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. It was such a good fun job. But I mean, the thing with the Mission films is they've got a massive budget. You know, it's like you crashed a bike, it's okay, get another one in, and you just go and get another bike, and it was
really,
you know, and these were brand new BMW racing bikes, and it was fantastic. But one of the stunts I did in there was we're chasing Tom Cruise. He's driving a silver M3 BMW, and there's 3 or 4 of us chasing him. He pulls the handbrake up, does a 90-degree skid, pins me against a wall, and my other mate Rob Hunt, he jumps on the bonnet of the car and he's firing a gun through the window at Tom. And I don't really want to give too much away here, but I mean, a lot of it was done on a rig, but all the crashes were for real. There was quite a bit of prep for that, and when you actually watch it in the film, and it's 2 seconds of film, you know, we were rehearsing it for weeks. And also there's all the little insert shots as well, where you're literally just bikes going past camera, going away from camera, chasing, going around corners, doing little skids, and all those things are literally like 2 or 3 seconds of film, which just add to the energy of the whole sequence. But you also need to be able to repeat things as well. So if do crash a bike, you need to be able to get back up, and if they say, oh, we missed it, or didn't quite crash in the right place, or it didn't quite look right, can you go again? You need to be able to get up and do it again, and that's the difference between a stunt and an accident. You know, anyone can crash a bike, anyone can crash a car, anyone can jump off a building, but if you can't get up and do it again, it's a bit pointless.
And you've got to crash it in the right place, because
Exactly.
all those shots are blocked out. You've got to hit your mark and everything else.
Yeah.
You talked on the stunt pod about the one in Captain America, I think it was, where you're on a bike and you sort of wipe out and then you hit the camera yourself.
Yeah, that didn't go according to plan at all.
But then sometimes you get these like a happy accident, like you would get in editing, like you get in shooting generally. You think, actually, that works better than what we originally intended.
Yeah, I mean, I had a very weird weekend after that stunt. Basically, the stunt is known as a dead man, where you're on a line. The line stops at a point, so you know you're going to stop at that point and hit the ground. And so in that scene, Captain America's riding his bike. He fires a line out between 2 trees. The first 4 riders duck underneath it, and I'm one of the last 2 riders. We hit the line and basically get clotheslined off the back of the bike. Yeah. But of course there's no line there, because that would be dangerous. So what we're on, we're attached to a line, so we both stop at the same point, and get pulled off the bikes. And my line snapped, so I ended up doing what they call a gainer, where your feet come up and go over your head, and so I was upside down. I remember when it happened, I thought to myself, again, because you mentioned muscle memory earlier, I knew what a dead man feels like, and I knew we'd rehearsed this stunt, and I knew what it should feel like, and I'm thinking, this doesn't feel right. Next thing I know, there's a whack on my head. Well, I don't really remember much after that. I thought I'd hit a tree, but it actually turned out I travelled about 20 or 30 feet, and I'd hit a camera in a crash box. Yeah, and ended up in an ambulance, and had a very, very weird weekend. I was working on Johnny English actually that weekend, but I don't remember much about it. But
wow, so concussed and
there was quite a it didn't go right, but they left it in the film, and is actually in the film. It's the first Avenger, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, you actually cut the frame there, like, so you fill the frame with your body, your part of your body, and then they cut to the next shot.
That's it, yeah.
Which adds, as you said, adds all that energy to those shots. Not intended and not ideal for you, but yeah. Do you ever look at some of those big stunts in movies that you weren't involved in and think, Do you think like, oh, I wish I'd have done that, or do you think, Christ, I'm glad that wasn't me?
Usually the second one. But again, that's where you're looking at it as a one-off, and you haven't.
Yeah, of course.
You've got to step back and go. It's like I was saying earlier. You don't just jump off a 100-foot building on fire on day one. You build up to it. So and that's the movie magic, isn't it? I think there's a friend of mine, Kai Martin, actually doubled Matt Damon in Bourne Ultimatum as well, and he was the one who did the jump. With the jump where he jumps off the roof and through the window. He did that, and I looked at that and thought that was ballsy, and that was a good stunt. But there would have been a lot of prep for that. But still, I mean, he still had to do it, and it was still did it for real. And then of course the cameraman on that was another stunt guy, Diz Sharp, and he'd rigged himself up so he could jump off the building with Kai and get the shot following him through the window. I mean, it was brilliant. Yeah, really, really good job.
Have you ever thought of going down that route, getting involved in the sort of stunt camera side of things? Because your brother, I should explain actually that the reason I've been able to get in touch with you is because your brother is a cameraman in the TV industry, and I've worked with him for many years. Has there ever been any temptation on your part to get involved in that side of things?
Not really, no, there hasn't. But that kind of makes it sound like I've got this massive ego and I'm desperate to be in front of camera, but I'm really not at all. I'm actually quite a shy person. I'm not an outgoing. I'm not extrovert at all. And I actually get quite embarrassed when people ask me what I do for a living, because I'll say, bit of health and safety. I work in TV and stuff, but. And inevitably the question comes, what do you do then? What do you do in TV? And yeah, it always gets a little bit awkward. But no, I've never really. I don't know. I'd struggle, I think, with all the buttons on the side of a camera, knowing what they all do. So,
you'd have a good mentor in Ollie. He could give you a few pointers.
Yeah, no.
It's an easy job anyway, being a camera operator.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Don't tell him I said that. Yeah. What has stunt performing taught you about the craft of acting as an observer? Has it given you a better appreciation of what it is those people do?
Yes, it does, because I have had a few small acting parts. I mean, literally like one or two lines in film, but it's totally different, and the pressure is immense when you're acting. And I've got a huge respect when an A-list actor steps onto set. There's, without them saying anything, there's just a presence, and it's quite interesting, because I don't know what creates that. I don't get it at all. So no, I have got massive respect for for actors and what they do. A lot of people think it's just shouting or they're just. I don't know, but when you actually try and do it yourself and then you see it back, you go, well, what am I not doing that they are doing? It's quite I have got massive respect for actors. I like to say, Matt Damon's my acting double.
Yeah, nice. You said in the stunt pod he's a very down to earth guy as well. Although he has got that kind of presence that you just talked about, he does seem somebody who's very sort of humble about it as well at the same time. Yeah.
I jump at the chance to double him, because he listens to what you're saying, but he works very hard to be the best that he can be as well. So he can do a lot of his own stuff. A lot of the fight sequences he'll do himself. But he's a genuinely nice person. He's got no ego. He's just a really nice guy. Actually, really nice he's really friendly to be around. Very intelligent. Knows what he wants and knows how to do what he needs to do, but without being an idiot about it.
Yeah. I think there is a sort of tendency for people to go down that route. Now, I've been on a couple of movie sets over the years. I got invited to the set of quite a crap film. It was Hercules. It was being shot out in Budapest, and it starred Dwayne Johnson. And it was the scene where the sort of typical battle scene where all the troops are lined up. So there's several hundred extras, all with their shields and staffs and everything. And he's at the front, in like his loincloth, kind of, and his like bare skin on his head, sort of rallying the troops and stuff. And I must have watched him do 6 or 8 takes of that. and he nailed it every single time. It was always another problem, like there was a plane going over, or there was a guy with a camera hiding in the bushes, or one of the guys dropped their shields or something. And yeah, it is, being able to act is an amazing skill, but being able to do it in such a sort of physical way that a lot of those action stars do is incredible.
And also you said about doing 6 or 8 takes of something, that's also quite a skill, because when you can deliver a line once and it kind of feels natural, but then to keep doing it and then take 6, take 7, take 8, take 12, to still have the interest, or to keep the interest there, and to make it sound like you actually mean what you're saying, I think that's a real skill as well.
Some directors used to go down that route of like 50 takes to sort of you get back to that point where you've sort of forgotten everything and you've tried everything, and then it becomes instinctive again.
Yeah, I worked on Eyes Wide Shut years ago. I was still doing extra work then, and I was standing outside at the tea table having a cup of tea, and one of the ADs ran out and said, "So Ben, let me see your hands." So I showed him my hands. He said, "Yeah, perfect. Can you come and stand in?" So I ended up standing in for Tom Cruise on that job, really randomly. But Stanley, of course, the film was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and he was one of those. 50 or 60 takes was not unusual. And I think we were filming at Highclere Castle, where they do Downton Abbey. We were filming there, and we were meant to be there for 2 or 3 days, and we ended up being there for 2 or 3 weeks. It just went on and on and on. But yeah, he would do multiple, tens of takes rather than 2 or 3.
Yeah. That's when you don't want to get a buyout in your contract. You want a daily rate. Yeah.
Don't get me started on that one.
Yeah. It's happening industry wide at the moment. But the problem is we're all desperate for work at the moment, aren't we? That's the thing. It's been a very difficult year for everyone. A lot of the people that listen to my podcast are fans of those kinds of 80s movies, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You actually worked on one of the Star Wars films, didn't you? Tell me about that experience of.
I did. I've done a couple of them actually. I did the Phantom Menace, which I think among Star Wars fans isn't one of the favourites.
What did you do on the Phantom Menace?
I was doing extra work on that, but I was on there for about 3 or 4 months on that in total. Yeah, that was good fun, but it was all blue screen stuff, so you'd find yourself running into the distance, but you'd run up to a blue screen and then just keep running on the spot, and they were just going to make you smaller and smaller, so it looked like you were running into the distance. And,
that was all up at Leavesden, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the first things they did at Leavesden. After it just sort of, I think it was a Rolls-Royce factory, wasn't it? They used to make the engines for the planes there. So, I think some of the runways are still there and stuff. But yeah, that was all at Leavesden. But that was good fun, actually. I enjoyed that.
So were you fully costumed in all that stuff?
Yeah, I was playing what was I called? A foot soldier or something. They actually made an action figure of me. I've got it somewhere in my shed. Yeah, there's a little action figure of me. They took me off for scanning and everything, and I had to wearing this costume. But yeah, I was in a couple.
Well, there you go. You've got a full retirement plan now. You can just go to all the sci-fi conventions, sign photographs and posters, and
do you know what? It has actually crossed my mind, because I know there are people who do it. Yeah, there are people
absolutely,
who do it. But then I worked on. No, this is going to sound really bad to Star Wars fans. I don't even know which one it was. It was filmed in. I went out to Abu Dhabi and filmed some stuff out there for one of the newer ones. And I didn't do a lot on them. I was going in for like a week or two, and I said to the girl who was booking the stunt people, when I saw the stormtroopers, I said, I've got to be a stormtrooper, and I was just about the right size to fit in the stormtrooper costume, because they were all very exact heights. Everyone had, I think it was 5'10" for stormtroopers, and I'm about 5'10" and a half, and they said, yeah, we'll squeeze you in. So I got into this stormtrooper costume. I was in it for 5 minutes. I said, I do not want to wear this ever again. It was horrendous. You couldn't move, and I mean they'd made it soft. The costume department had made it soft as they could, so you could move, but then you couldn't go for a wee, you couldn't have a drink, you couldn't eat anything, and then you had to wear these secret cloaks, so you everywhere you went, no one could take pictures of you. I mean, everyone knows what a stormtrooper looks like, but anyway, you have to go down.
But this is a new stormtrooper,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, God.
But
I've worn one of those costumes as well. A mate of mine used to own like a replica one, and I put it on once, and yeah, within seconds you just think
Yeah,
this is horrible, and
yeah,
especially those guys who did it in the original films where it was
yeah.
all like really stiff
That's it. Well,
plastic.
yeah. One of there's a stunt guy, Jim Dowdle, who is also he's the chairman of the British Stunt Register, but he was one of the original stormtroopers, and he said the costume was rock hard. You couldn't move in they're horrible. Yeah. And then if you've got to fall over, if you've got to take a reaction to being shot or whatever, you get more injuries from the costume than you do from actually the stunt. It's luckily things have changed now, and like I say, costume departments actually take into account what stunt people have to do and pads that you might be wearing, and yeah, so they'll make allowances for that.
I don't see that as an attractive proposition, being in a costume doing that sort of stuff. And I guess as soon as you put a helmet on, people kind of forget there's a human in there in some way, you know.
Yeah, sort of.
As soon as you
yeah.
don't see a face, you kind of you don't think about letting them have a wee break.
No.
What do you think? What kind of stunts will always need to be done physically, do you think? Because obviously there is this movement to sort of make things more CGI based, and, you know, from a safety point of view, I guess, but then that's always tempered against the budget because they can cost a lot of money. Do you think stunt performing is going to be something that's going to live on for a long time?
I'd like to say yes, and from my own point of view, you watch some of the Marvel films, for example, and I just watch it and just think it's all CGI. I personally, I love to see something done for real, and you can tell when it's done for real. But of course, there's limitations. I mean, you know, you can't deliberately hurt someone just to get a stunt. But VFX is so good now, and the CGI is so good that it is taking over more and more. But it involves so many people, and it is very expensive. So I mean, I think sometimes fire jobs, VFX, sometimes with lighting and stuff, you know, if someone's on fire, then that could be something that would be better done for real. Yeah, it's difficult to say really, because I mean, like I say, VFX can do so much now. Yeah, I'd like to say that stunts has got longevity, but I'm not entirely sure that it has.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think you can tell whether something is genuine or not. And, you know, as I said before, as good as some of this face replacement stuff is, I think there are some people who are a bit more discerning. I think I'm one of those people. I mean, I've been to films where there's been entirely CG characters, and I come out of it going, oh, that didn't work, did it? And my mates are going, was there? Oh,
Yeah.
Was that a CG character? And you think, how did you not see that?
Yeah.
But I guess it's just trying to find that fine line between sort of pleasing most of the people and making it
I
sort of
think
real for most of the people.
in terms of as far as stunts go, I think what it's going to mean for the stunt industry is we're going to do much more stuff on green screen, and there's going to be much more sort of motion capture, because you still, stunt people move very well, or they should, and that's why dancers actually make very good stunt people, because they're great with choreography and they understand movement. So you still, like a lot of video games, there's video games is a massive industry now, and of course all these men you see on Call of Duty, all these video games, it's all stunt people generally who've been in a film wearing a motion capture suit, running around in front of a blue screen. So of course there's still a market there, definitely, for stunt people.
Yeah. I was watching a thing about the new Star Wars TV show, The Mandalorian, where they've got these giant LED screens in a studio that can kind of replicate any background, you know, they create in a computer game engine, and then the camera can move and see what it needs to see. But they're still doing physical stunts in there. They've still got people on wires and you know, fighting and all that kind of stuff. So are you finding that work has been difficult this year with COVID and everything?
Yes, I started a film in December last year, so 2019, and then we went through until 13th of March, and it was just when COVID was kind of gripping the nation, and there'd been a few cases in the UK, and we got sent home, and we were told we were going to go home for 4 weeks, reassess, and then be back at work. And it, basically started a 7-month summer holiday for everyone, didn't it? I started going back to work in August. I was meant to be going to Malta for Jurassic, But that was also at a time when there was this 14-day quarantine period if you travelled abroad. But that was going to impact. I was only going to be there for 4 days, and that was going to mean that I was going to lose quite a bit of work when I came back. So I actually didn't go to Malta. But Jurassic was one of the first things that went back. But it also meant that it kind of kick-started it for everyone else, because then there was a system in place for everyone to get tested. Everyone was getting temperature checked every day, and it kind of got everyone back to work. So in September I was getting quite a bit of work, mainly on TV stuff actually, and a little bit on I did a bit on Venom reshoots as well, and then I started back on the project that we got sent home from in March. I started back on that in mid-October. But yeah, we're getting tested 3 times a week. So there's definitely a lot of protocols in place now that we have to adhere to make sure that we can keep working.
Yeah, it's the same with me for the Formula One stuff. You know, we're getting tested a couple of times a week, and I mean that's finished for the season now. Not a pleasant experience at first, but you kind of get used to it after a while. It just becomes one of those things you need to do. How does the protocols that are in place now, how does that affect what you do? Is it restrictive in any way in terms of the stunts you can pull off?
Yeah, not in terms of what we can do, but there's definitely different ways of doing things. So each member of cast has their own harnesses, their own pads, their own set of equipment. But of course that kind of increases our budget a little bit, because where before we'd go, oh, let's borrow those knee pads from that actor to give to this actor for this shot. Now everyone has to have their own set of equipment. Everything has to be cleaned down at the end of the day. We've got these thermal strike machines which basically heat everything up to kill anything. So we put the harnesses, we put pads, helmets, anything like that we use in these thermal strike machines at the end of the day. So that kills everything. Everything has to be cleaned down and wiped down. It does put a bit more work our way, if you like. But every department's the same. Special effects are the same, camera department's the same. Everyone has to stay 2 metres apart on set, which is difficult for us because obviously if we're working closely with cast, or there's a fight scene or whatever, people have to work closely together. So that's where we have to, we just have to make sure that everyone's been tested as much as they can be.
Yeah. I wasn't leading to the Tom Cruise question, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to talk about that. Have there been any films, or is there any sort of... You said you're not much of a not huge movie buff, but you enjoy your movies, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Has there been any films that you would love to be involved with, if they did a sequel to something, or a particular actor you'd love to work with?
I mentioned Jim Dowdle earlier. He asked me this question probably about 15 years ago. And... yeah, we touched on the cheesy stuff earlier, but Cannonball Run, anything like that, Smokey and the Bandit, Convoy, any of those old American films that involve lots of cars, lots of Trans Ams, lots of police cars crashing, I'd have jumped at the chance to work on anything like that. Yeah, really good, because all that stuff was done for real, and you can see it was. Whereas now I worked on Hobbs and Shaw a couple of years ago, and then when you watch that and you see the car hanging off the edge of the cliff, you think, yeah, it's all CGI. But any of those old 80s films, I'd have loved to have worked on them. Anything like that, it'd have been really good fun.
I loved those films as a kid. Smokey and the Bandit 1 and 2 and Cannonball Run 1 and 2 were just on like rotation in my house.
Yeah,
me and my sister would watch those constantly, and the Indiana Jones movies and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. It was a great period. Are there any actors then you would like to sort of double for? Like, does that ever cross your mind, or is your likeness to Matt Damon sort of fix that in one spot for you?
Well, no, exactly. I think it has actually. I never thought about who I'd love to double or anything, but actually doubling Matt Damon for me has been perfect, because he's a really nice guy, and he's a nice actor to double, and he does some good stuff as well. I'd just like to say actually, I'm not his main double. When he works in the UK, I tend to get the call, but he has got plenty. He's got a lot of other doubles as well. But he's been great to double. Yeah, definitely.
I suppose as he gets older, he'll probably need, a stuntman that's, significantly young. Are you younger than him already? I guess you are, aren't you?
I'm 2 years younger than him, I think.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So I'm yeah, let's be honest, I'm approaching 50, so there's limitations to what I can do. So yeah,
maybe he'll just do him himself from now on. He's in pretty good shape himself, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
I was going to ask you actually. That's sort of the end. But I was going to ask you about what projects are you working on and what's your next thing. But I guess often that's kind of secretive, and you've signed NDAs and
absolutely. I think I can mention what I'm working on, but I can't tell you anything about it. So yeah, I mean, it's no secret that these films are happening. So, but I'm actually working on Little Mermaid at the moment, which people go, "What stunts are in Little Mermaid?" But of course, you've got the whole. You've got people living underwater, so of course they're
diving.
They're all on wires, a lot of it, and it's all on blue screen. Yeah, okay. So there's a massive amount of VFX in this as well, because obviously the mermaid from chest down is fish. So yeah. So obviously we've got VFX are very busy there, but I'm working on Little Mermaid at the moment.
I've got 3 girls, so I'll be definitely seeing that in whatever form, whether it's in the cinema or on Disney Plus. Because I was going to ask you actually about. We watched Mary Poppins Returns the other day, and I guess when you're signed up for a gig like that, you think, "What am I going to? Where are the stunts in that?" Yeah,
well, I got called originally for that. The stunt coordinator phoned me up and said, "There's a whole sequence involving BMXs. So can you pull together 30 BMX riders? We'll do some auditions and we'll choose some riders for that." So that's how I got involved with that, and then. So we ended up with these 10 BMX guys who, I mean, they were fantastic. They're phenomenal what they could do on a bike. I mean, because BMXing is not something that there's a lot of on the stunt register, so we had to go off the stunt register and get specialists in for that. But we had guys who were sponsored by. Well, one of them was sponsored by Red Bull. There was guys who've got bike sponsors, and they're all really good riders, but. They've all got other jobs as well, they ride for Deliveroo, or they deliver pizzas, or they're carpenters, or whatever. So BMXing's a hobby for them, but they were a good bunch of lads actually. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with them on that film. But the difficulty, not the difficulty, the thing we had to learn to do on Mary Poppins was working to music, because of course everything was done to music, which was. And that goes back to me saying that how dancers make good stunt performers, because they understand timings and things like that. But these guys were fantastic, and of course they're used to riding in skate parks with 5-6-year-olds on scooters and skateboards and all this, and they're pulling off double tail whips and backflips and all this sort of thing. But then they have to swerve at the last second to avoid a 6-year-old on a scooter. So, but they were brilliant. Their timing was phenomenal. They were really, really good bunch of guys. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with them.
Yeah, nice. It's interesting, sort of the different routes you go down with stunts. One that wouldn't necessarily be expected with that. Yeah, that's cool.
Interestingly, the people doing Little Mermaid, it's exactly the same crew that did Mary Poppins. So it's quite nice to, you sort of understand their process of working. So it's good fun.
That's a nice thing, isn't it, when you end up working with the same team again, because you've got that kind of shorthand with each other, haven't you? And you've got past all of those initial difficulties, and you know which people are going to work and which maybe aren't so well. And it makes for the job a lot more satisfying, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we all work with different departments. And often there can be a bit of abrasion between people, but my feeling is, we're all working towards the same end project. We all want it to be as good as it can be. So it's, with everyone on Mary Poppins, there's none of that. It's all the departments are absolutely fantastic, and everyone wants to help each other out. And quite often, unfortunately, stunts don't have much they can offer other people, but quite often we're the most demanding department, because we're speaking to art department and construction about getting soft floors made, and then we're speaking to special effects about getting certain rigs made, and then we're speaking to costume, because we're going to need to cut up holes in their very expensive costumes for harness points and things like that. And I'm very,
I bet you're popular.
Yeah, I'm very aware that we can be quite demanding. So I always
the bloody stunt department.
God, what do they want now?
We should say actually. So you've got a website and you've got a YouTube channel. What should people look for if they want to have a look?
Yeah, my company name is Rage Stunts. So the YouTube channel has only got about 3 videos on it, but they might be of interest to people. It's just me dicking around, really. You were mentioning NDAs earlier. Of course, I can't actually put a lot of stuff that I do at work on there, but yeah, it's Rage Stunts, and yeah, there's an Instagram and YouTube and all that sort of thing. So if anyone wanted to have a look at what we do, then there's bits and pieces on there.
Great. Thanks for your time, Ben. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Jamie.
Good luck with everything in the future.
Yes, thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed my chat there with Ben. Next time, I'm hoping to speak to a guy who worked on many of the miniatures in some of the movies that we love, including Aliens, True Lies, and more. Hopefully that'll be the next episode. Thanks ever so much for your support this year. It's been a new endeavour for me, a bit out of my comfort zone, but thanks for all the feedback, whether you've done it on a review, or you've sent me a message personally, or you've tweeted something, or Facebook, or something like that. It's been very, very gratefully received, and it does spur me on to keep doing it. And thanks to everyone who's helped me get these guests for these episodes for this first year's run. Next year, I'm hoping to have even more. I'm going to continue with this. I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are too. Wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy 2021. Fingers crossed that it's a better one this time round. I know that viruses don't care about calendars, but we do. And yeah, I hope 2021 is much better for everyone. Thanks again. I hope to see you soon.